In this lesson, we're going to be reviewing how to set up a standard Larry Jacob events page. Now, this is a WordPress page. We typically name it events.domainofthecustomer.com. So this is the page that you arrive at if you show up at the home page of this WordPress site. And here is one specific event, and you'll see that this is an Infusionsoft form that's set up as a JavaScript to show up right here in place. So if someone shows up at this page and they want to see all of the events that are showing up for this specific site, they go here. If there was more than one event defined, it would show up here in this list. So I'm going to dig in here, and you'll see that what we have is the name, we have the date, and then any detail we want to show up. This information shows up on top of a line. The reason it's cut off is because we have a more tag that stops the rest of the page from showing. After this, we have a description of the event, and here we have the registration for it. Now let's go into Infusionsoft and see exactly how this is implemented behind the scenes. So we have this campaign, and the campaign is set up in two sections. For this client, we have not set up the first part of the campaign because they're sending the emails out manually. This is the part that would fit right here, and when I go into edit mode, I'll show you how that works. And then these are two paths that we've set up. In this client's case, it's two events in one, so we've updated the form to allow for a 12 noon and a 7 p.m. event. It's the exact same event with two different pieces to it, or two different times. So I'm going to switch over to edit, and you'll see the beginning part here is set up with a tag. It's a trigger tag that that we use if we wanted to send a set of invitations to everyone on a given time schedule. We haven't done it for this client, but if we did, we typically would send out 3, and here we're set up for even more than that. That's just because of the history of this campaign. But each of these then has to be set up with the specific information for the invitation. I'm not going to review that because we're not using it here. So here we have an event registration. This is the form that implements this sidebar registration form. So as you get here, you see it looks exactly like that, and it does because we're inserting it. Basically, it's kind of like as an iframe. We're inserting it using this JavaScript snippet, which means that we insert it right there in the page and it just shows up. Now, it's critical whenever we create one of these that we have a thank you page that provides information that people will know what to do when they do fill this out. So we appreciate you registering for the event. Please check your email for instructions you will need to attend. So we always like to have a nice logo here. We always need instructions. These instructions are probably fine. This is an Infusionsoft hosted page, so you don't even have to go into WordPress to modify it. It's all here. In the settings page, there's some really important information. First of all notifications of signups always go to the webmaster at larryjacob.com. That's so that we can keep an eye on this, make sure we understand what's going on in a customer's registrations. And then whatever address needs to be used to notify the customer. This is critical because the customer cannot be in the blind about what's going on with their campaigns. This is an email that goes out every time someone signs up. We always prefix it with an abbreviation and capital letters so that when an email shows up in the webmaster account, we can tell who's it for. It's not going to be for us. This is for the Speak Out account. This has to be a description that corresponds to what's happening so that when it shows up in our email and in the customer's, we know exactly what it's for. In Anne's case, I always put a yippee in here because she likes that. And so someone registered for the November event. when this email goes out, the body will have all the detail that goes with whatever information was filled out on this form. And I just tried to click here and didn't go right away. So all the information, including the webinar time, is included in the body of the email that is sent out. So that's the settings tab. So it's very important that this always gets filled out for all these forms. And again, this code right here is what gets inserted into the sidebar. And in this case, this is implemented as a table. So it gets put into this column of the table so that the registration page shows up every time someone displays this page. So let's continue. So when someone fills out this form, in this case there's a diamond, and that's because there's two versions of this. So in this diamond, what we have is a decision that says you're going to go to the 12 p.m. versus the 7 p.m. Flow if the form submission option webinar time is selected. So if someone clicks on this radio button, they go to this flow. If someone clicks on this radio button, they go through this flow. So that's how the traffic is partitioned between these two flows. Now these two flows are exactly the same. I'm going to close this up because I want to make sure you see that there is something else in there, and we'll cover that in a moment. So I'm just going to put this up so we can see the whole thing. Okay, so I'm going to double click here, and the minute someone registers, they get tagged so that we know that, and we put this in the event tags, and we always want to have a category called exactly this. And then we call it registered. So we name the event. In this case, we've named it 4A, mainly because in Anne's case, we have this is the fourth of several events that we've done for her. So we've tagged it so that we can very easily run a list of contacts that have that tag, and we'll know who's registered. This is a call to plus this. Whenever we're doing these events, we're going to be using plus this because this is a webinar, and there'll be a separate recording that shows how to program plus this. But this tells plus this is connected to GoToMeeting, and it inserts them into the GoToMeeting webinar that we've defined for this. And one of the things that it also does is it inserts the link for attending the webinar in the contact record. GoToMeeting, I'm sorry, not GoToMeeting, the GoToWebinar product will give a unique link to every single contact. And the reason it does that is so that we know who attended based upon the link that they use. So it's important that you make this call. GoToMeeting sets them up to attend, and it tells Infusionsoft via a custom field what their link is. Now here in the email that I send out, we're going to take advantage of that link, and it's important that certain things happen. First of all, right away we need to give them details for your upcoming, in this case we named it the Speak Out webinar. So here we sent it out just like we have a contact field inserted. We also have a contact field put in here. So this is the name of the custom field that has the link the client is going to be using to attend the webinar. It's very important that this, what's in your elevator pitch, this title matches the title here so that people see the consistency from one page to the emails that they receive. So here we go. This time always has to be checked. It has to match, the exact time that's shown here. In this case, we have two different messages. So two different events. So, they have to be checked in both sequences. So I'm going to go out here, and that's the confirmation email. I probably just changed a space here. So you'll notice that this is gray. We'll make sure to publish things when we're done. Now there's a reminder sequence. What we've done in Anne's case, and this is typical of what we do, is we send a reminder the day of. So that morning, we want to send them a reminder that also has the link in it and all the information they need to attend. That way, they're not sitting there looking through their email frantically right before the webinar. So you'll see that this reminder is set at the day of the webinar. This is set the day before, and this is set the week before. So in this case, we've set it up so that it shows up uh, on the 7th, which is the Friday before the 12th when we're holding this webinar. So here's the reminder. The first reminder, we have to make sure we check that the subject line makes sense. So don't forget about my webinar next week. It's being sent out from Ann directly. So this one, first name, we have to make sure that the name of the webinar is correct. Hey, here's a typo. We'll make sure we correct that. Wednesday the 12th at noon, and then there's the link. So this one is fine. Here's the reminder number 2. And reminder number 2, here's the contact. So tomorrow is the webinar. You have to make sure that this makes sense relative to when it's being sent out. You are signed up for the name, so this title has to match, and then this link is fine, and so is the time. So we'll come out of here, and then we'll check for the last one here, which is reminder number 3. This one is sent out the morning of the event. So the webinar is today, so the subject line has to match. You are signed up for today's what's in your webinar elevator pitch, so that has to make sense relative to when it's being sent out. The time is at noon and the link is correct. Okay, so now we're going to jump out of here and we're going to go through the second flow. This is the one for the evening event. Again, this is, we're applying a tag. This tag comes up and has the webinar registered, so that's good. And notice this is B. This is a call to another plus this number plus this gives you the link to call, and this is the one that registers them into the GoToMeeting evening webinar, and it puts the custom field filled in with the link, and then here's the email that they get sent. So this is being sent immediately. Here's, the subject line makes sense. Thank you for registering. The name of the event is consistent. It's now specified 7 o'clock, and the link is good. We'll go back here. Now we're looking at the reminders. Again, the reminders are sent out the Friday before, the day before, and the morning of. We look at the reminder number 1. Don't forget about my webinar next week. You're signed up for, and notice I must have copy and pasted this. There's the same typo. So we'll fix that. Elevator pitch. It's at 7 o'clock, and there's the link. Now we're going to go reminder number 2. You are signed up for what's in your elevator pitch. Again, that's correct. It's tomorrow. And then you see that the link is good. And then we'll go to number 3 here. And so reminder webinars today. You are signed up for today's elevator pitch, and the link is good. It's at 7 o'clock. So that's an overview of how the reminders are done. And then send follow-ups. Right now, we aren't doing anything. However, when you use GoToMeeting and plus this, there are other signals that can be used, and I'll record that in a separate video. Take care.